Welcome to the Sleep Carriage. My name is Dev. Tonight we step back into the warm twilight of ancient Egypt, where the desert air softens and the markets come alive beneath the stars. You find yourself standing at the edge of the Nile, the water moving with a slow, hypnotic rhythm that feels almost like breathing. The air is cooler now, a relief after the dry weight of the day, and torches begin to flicker along the riverbank. Their reflections shiver on the surface of the water, golden ripples stretching out toward the darkness. You probably wouldn't survive this world. Let's be honest, no modern comforts, no air conditioning, no phone glow in your palm, but for tonight, you get to wander without worry, safe in the folds of history. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like it, drop your location and the local time in the comments. I love seeing where in the world people are listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The rhythm of Egypt is steady. Day and night, the Nile has always carried people, food, stone, and stories. You step closer to the market, hearing voices begin to swell. The day's heat has passed, and night is the time when both nobles and farmers, bakers and fishermen, come to share in the exchange of life. The market never feels like chaos. Instead, it breathes like a single, slow-moving creature. There are footsteps crunching on sand, the shuffle of woven sandals, and the distant bleat of a goat. You smell the smoke of small fires being lit, fires for baking, for warmth, for warding off whatever restless spirits might wander in the night. The air is heavy with wood smoke and Nile mist, earthy and sweet. As you walk, you notice the people. Women with linen dresses, simple and pale, moving with baskets balanced perfectly on their heads. Men with rough hands from working fields, still carrying the smell of grain and sweat. Children darting between legs, their laughter skipping like pebbles tossed across water. You notice jewelry glittering in the last light of dusk, gold that gleams even when the torchlight barely touches it. One thing you may not realize is that in ancient Egypt, bread wasn't just food, it was currency. Workers, even builders of the pyramids, were often paid in bread and beer. Tonight, as you pass through the quiet roads leading into the market, the smell of bread is already reaching you, warm and comforting. It is the smell of survival, the smell of ritual, the smell of home. And yet, this place is also filled with contradictions. While the market seems timeless and ordinary, some historians argue that true night markets in Egypt were rare, perhaps limited to festivals or special occasions. The evidence is scattered, debated. Were Egyptians truly shopping after dark? Or is this more dream than fact? Either way, tonight in this story, the market opens for you, and you are invited to wander. You step slowly, carefully, each footfall soft on the sand-smooth stones. The first stalls are appearing now in the distance, torches burning low, the faint hum of voices calling you closer. The Nile glimmers behind you. The stars above are sharper than you've ever seen, and the night is only just beginning. You drift deeper into the night, your footsteps guided by the warm pools of torchlight spilling across the sand. The market is waking, though the sun is long gone, and there's something both familiar and foreign about it. A murmur of conversation runs like a stream ahead of you, traders negotiating, friends greeting one another, and the soft music of a reed flute floating in the air. The first stall you pass is piled with bread, just as you expected. Loaves shaped like flat discs, some darker, some lighter, their crusts browned from clay ovens. The smell is irresistible, nutty, earthy, almost sweet. Bakers pull fresh bread from woven baskets, dusting off the flour as though brushing away time itself. A woman offers you a piece. You bite gently, and it crumbles in your mouth, dense and filling. It tastes of wheat, of barley, and just a little of the smoke from the oven fire. You notice how gritty it is. The bread has a texture you're not used to, because ancient flour was ground with stone, and tiny bits of grit made their way into every loaf. Great. Another day of sand between your teeth. Bread isn't just food here, it's a language. To give bread is to give life. Families measure wealth in loaves. Priests offer bread to the gods, and every worker hopes to earn their daily ration. You might be surprised to learn that bread was often baked with extra ingredients. Dates, figs, or even coriander seeds to keep the taste fresh and varied. Imagine your favorite modern snack, but made in clay ovens, eaten under the stars, with no preservatives but time itself. As you leave the bread stall, the sounds of the market deepen. You hear the sharp clatter of copper pots, the rush of voices haggling over prices, the bleat of animals penned nearby. Somewhere, a donkey stamps its hooves impatiently. You walk past a group of fishermen selling their catch from the Nile tilapia, perch, even the occasional catfish, their scales catching the torchlight in quick flashes. A boy fan flies away with a bundle of palm leaves, his eyes half closed, as though this was the most boring job in the world. The smell changes as you pass from stall to stall. Smoke, fish, sweet fruit, and the faint sharpness of onions and garlic carried in baskets. You pass one vendor balancing a tray of pomegranates, their skins glowing red like embers. Another has dates laid out on palm mats, their sticky sweetness pulling you closer. A group of children crowd around, reaching for the treats, while their mother pulls them gently back. Dates were not just dessert. They were everyday food, packed with sugar and energy for long days in the fields. Somewhere nearby, a group of men is drinking beer from tall, wide-mouthed jars. Egyptian beer isn't like what you know, it's thick, cloudy, more like a porridge you sip than a drink you pour. Workers lived on it, priests blessed it, and of course, a night market wouldn't be complete without a little alcohol to loosen tongues and sweeten trade. And yet, as steady and lively as the market feels, historians still wonder, was this scene truly common? Some suggest most trade happened during the day, under the sharp desert sun. Others argue that the heat of Egypt made night the perfect time to gather, to buy, to celebrate. The truth may be somewhere in between. But for tonight, the evidence leans in your favor, and the night market is alive. You stop at a pottery stall, shelves stacked with clay jars, bowls, and cups. The vendor runs his hand across one smooth pot, the glaze shining faintly in the light. He tries to convince you this piece will last forever. You don't have the heart to tell him that in 3,000 years, it'll end up in a museum display case, watched by strangers in glassy rooms. For now, it's enough to feel its cool weight in your hand. The night is not rushing. It is unrolling, slow and gentle, like linen being unwound from a spool. You walk on, surrounded by the hum of life, the smell of food, and the soft press of history. The market is only beginning to reveal its secrets. You pause at the edge of the market's main square, where the crowd thickens and the torches throw longer, wavering shadows. Here, the night market isn't only about food and clay jars. It's about fabric, color, and the rhythm of weaving life into cloth. The first thing you notice is the shimmer of linen. Bolts of it, stacked and folded, some plain, some dyed with faint hues, soft yellows, dusty reds, the rare and expensive deep blues. A woman runs her hands over the cloth, letting it slide through her fingers like water. Linen was Egypt's second skin, worn by peasants and pharaohs alike, wrapped around the living and the dead. You lift a strip of it and notice how cool it feels, even in the heat of the night, as if the desert itself approved of this fabric. Nearby, two men argue over the price of a finer piece. The seller insists the dye came all the way from the eastern deserts, carried on camel caravans. The buyer insists he knows a cheaper stall just down the row. Their voices rise, but there's laughter underneath it. Bargaining is part of the ritual. It's the dance of the market, a little like telling jokes with numbers. You're not supposed to pay the first price. In fact, if you don't argue, you're almost insulting the seller. You pass a row of stalls selling sandals woven from papyrus reeds. Simple, practical, and exactly what you'd need to walk these sandy streets. A few pairs are decorated with beads or colored leather strips. You imagine someone buying them to impress a sweetheart, only to discover that beads don't make sand any softer. The air grows louder again as you move toward a corner where spinners and weavers sit at their looms. Women hum as they work, pulling thread from flax fibers, twisting and knotting with steady hands. The clack of the looms creates a background rhythm, like a heartbeat behind the market's chatter. One of the younger girls looks bored, tugging lazily at her task. She knows she'll be at this for hours. You remember how linen was not just for clothes, it was used for bed sheets, sails, even for writing surfaces when papyrus was scarce. And, of course, for the wrappings of the dead. A comforting thought as you shop for pajamas. Isn't it? Across from the looms sits a jeweler, his tiny stall glowing like a treasure chest. Strings of beads made from a glassy, bright material catch the torchlight in shades of turquoise, green, and gold. Amulets shaped like scarabs and ankhs dangle in neat rows, each one promising luck, protection, or favor from the gods. You notice a small boy tugging at his mother's dress, pointing toward a bright blue amulet. She shakes her head, probably calculating if food is a better purchase tonight. Jewelry here isn't just decoration, it's belief you can wear. That scarab might keep your heart safe in the afterlife. That ankh might remind you of the sun's eternal cycle. And that necklace of shells might just make you look better at tomorrow's festival. The line between beauty and faith is thin, and here it seems to vanish entirely. Somewhere nearby, you hear music again. A group of young men are playing hand drums, the rhythm steady, pulling people closer. A flute joins in, and the sound twists like smoke through the air. A small crowd gathers, clapping along, their laughter spilling into the night. You can't help but smile. It feels timeless, this mixture of trade and play, of work and joy. Still, not everything is carefree. A tax collector lingers near the fabric stalls, quietly counting, quietly watching. It's a reminder that nothing here is truly free. Even in a night market, the king has his share, and scribes will tally it neatly on their papyrus scrolls tomorrow. You glance at him and wonder if his stern face hides the thought of stopping for beer later, just like everyone else. Historians debate what these night markets really looked like. Were they festive like this? Were they serious centers of trade? Or were they something smaller, quieter, just families exchanging goods after work? The answer may be lost, but in the glow of torchlight, it's easy to believe in the festive version. Humans rarely resist the chance to turn necessity into celebration. The square grows busier as the night deepens. People press closer together, voices rising and falling in waves. The market isn't just a place to buy. It's where you're seen, where you catch up on gossip, where you notice who's holding hands with who, and where you find out if your neighbor got a new donkey. And so you walk on, the smell of flax, leather, and hot wax following you, the echo of drums tugging at your steps. The market is a living thing, and tonight you're walking through its beating heart. As you weave deeper into the market, the mood changes again. The square thins into winding alleys, where the torches stand closer together, casting light on smaller stalls tucked into every corner. Here, the goods feel more personal, less about trade in bulk, more about stories told through objects. One stall catches your eye immediately. It's filled with pottery rows of jars, bowls, and cups, each one shaped by hand and painted with designs in red and black. The potter, an older man with dust in his beard, runs his hand along the rim of a jar as if smoothing it for the 100th time. He tells a young couple that this one is for oil, this one for beer, this one for grain. Every household in Egypt needed them, yet each jar feels like it carries its own character. You wonder how many hands have made and broken jars just like these. How many kitchens have been filled with their usefulness? Farther on, a stall glitters with copper and bronze. Tools, knives, small mirrors polished until they almost gleam. A young woman picks up a mirror, tilting it toward her face. The image is hazy, but it's enough to catch the shine of her eyes. She laughs softly and sets it back down. Mirrors in Egypt weren't glass, they were hammered metal, catching just enough light to remind you of your reflection. You think about how much of daily life was lived without knowing exactly how you looked, except in the ripples of the Nile or the shimmer of bronze. Next to the tools, you find a man selling small carved figurines. Cats, falcons, crocodiles, each animal tied to a god, each carving a piece of faith you could take home with you. A boy points at a tiny cat, its ears sharp and its body smooth. The vendor tells him it's for Batet, the goddess who protects homes and families. The boy nods seriously, as if weighing whether his household might need more divine protection tonight. A faint scent of perfume drifts your way, surprising in the dusty air. You follow it and discover a table lined with little alabaster jars, carved smooth and glowing pale in the torchlight. Inside them are oils, frankincense, myrrh, lotus. The seller dabs a drop onto her wrist and lifts it to a woman's nose. The woman smiles, eyes half closed, transported for a moment to gardens far from the city. Perfume in Egypt wasn't only for beauty. It was sacred, used in temples, offered to gods, and carried in rituals. Here, though, it's also a luxury, something to make an ordinary night feel extraordinary. You pass by a small group gathered around a scribe. He sits cross-legged, a reed pen in hand, offering to write names or short prayers on scraps of papyrus. Literacy was rare, a skill that turned words into power. A farmer leans in, dictating slowly, his voice full of pride as the scribe scratches out signs he himself could never make. The crowd watches with quiet reverence. To see words born onto papyrus is to watch a kind of magic, where sound becomes something permanent. And then there are the entertainers. At one corner, a juggler tosses clay balls into the air, catching them with practiced ease as children cheer. Near him, a storyteller has gathered a circle, his hands moving as quickly as his voice. He speaks of battles fought long ago, of gods who walked the earth, of kings who built monuments so tall the stars had to bend around them. The crowd leans in, caught between memory and myth. Stories here aren't only told for pleasure. They keep history alive, turning night into a living archive. The air thickens with the smell of incense burning in a clay burner nearby. It curls upward into the darkness, drifting above the market like a prayer. The smoke seems to carry the whole scene with it. The laughter, the music, the bargaining voices, the clatter of pottery. For a moment you close your eyes, and you can almost believe the market exists outside of time, its torches burning not just for one night, but forever. Of course, archaeologists can't tell us exactly what an Egyptian night market looked like. The records don't describe it in detail. What we piece together comes from fragments, pottery shards, scraps of papyrus, carvings on tomb walls. Yet, when you stand here, surrounded by linen and oil, jewelry and stories, it feels as real as any history ever could. Because markets are universal. They are where humanity gathers to exchange not only goods, but laughter, hope, and the small rituals of survival. The alley spills back into a wider street, and you see more torches ahead, more stalls waiting. The night is still young, and the market has much more to show you. The torches ahead guide you into another pocket of the market, where the air feels heavier with spice and grain. This part is livelier, vendors call louder, hands reach out with samples, and children dart between stalls, clutching bits of bread or fruit. A line of baskets catches your attention first. They're woven tightly from reeds of the Nile, stacked high with barley and emmer wheat. The grain glimmers faintly in the firelight, tiny sparks of gold against the night. Farmers measure it out with scoops, pouring the kernels into cloth sacks for waiting families. Grain is the heartbeat of Egypt, the foundation of bread and beer, two staples that fed both peasants and pharaohs alike. You imagine these same grains traveling down the river, stored in granaries, offered in temples fuel for daily life and for eternity. Not far from the grain sellers, a group of women knead dough on broad wooden boards. Their hands move in a steady rhythm, pressing and folding, pressing and folding. One lays the dough flat onto a rounded clay surface heated by coals, the smell of fresh bread wafting into the night. A boy tugs at his mother's sleeve, pointing eagerly. She laughs and buys him a small round loaf, still warm, its surface blistered with heat. He bites into it instantly, the steam rising into the cool air. Bread here isn't just food. It's a symbol of life itself. Egyptians even buried loaves with the dead, ensuring nourishment beyond the grave. Next, your eye is drawn to clay jars arranged in neat rows, each one stoppered with reed or cloth. A vendor lifts the lid off one and pours a thick amber liquid into a small cup of beer. But not the kind you might imagine today. Egyptian beer is cloudy, more like a porridge, brewed from bread and flavored sometimes with dates or honey. A worker takes a long sip, wiping his mouth with satisfaction. Beer was for everyone, rich and poor, sacred and ordinary. A drink that sustained the body and lifted the spirit. A few stalls away, the sweetness of honey mingles with the sharper scent of garlic and onion. Jars of honey glisten in the firelight, golden pools trapped in pottery. A vendor dips a reed into one and lets it drip slowly, catching the eye of a girl who tugs her father closer. Nearby, onions and garlic are piled high in baskets, their papery skins rustling whenever someone reaches for them. They aren't luxuries here, they are medicine, protection, even offerings to the gods. The market is as much about healing as it is about eating. Beyond the food stalls, you notice a faint shimmer of something different. A group of traders from farther south have laid out exotic goods, elephant ivory, dark wood polished smooth, bundles of incense tied with string. Their accents mark them as travelers, their goods as treasures brought from Nubia or beyond. People stop to marvel at the unfamiliar scents and textures. Egypt was never isolated. The Nile carried not just water, but stories and trade from distant lands. Standing here, you feel the hum of connection, the way this market ties together villages, cities, and even kingdoms. At the edge of the square, music rises again, this time sharper, more urgent. A group of drummers beat in unison, their hands slapping the stretched hide in complex patterns. Two men step forward, balancing long sticks, and begin a mock fight. Kicks, strikes, spins. The crowd cheers, children clap, and even the elders smile at the performance. Dance and combat blend seamlessly, art and skill interwoven. For the Egyptians, such displays weren't only entertainment. They were training, rituals of strength, and echoes of stories carved into temple walls. As you stand in the glow of torches, surrounded by bread, beer, honey, and the rhythm of drums, the market feels like the very pulse of Egypt itself. The night stretches on, and the air remains thick with life, rich, bustling, endless. And still, the market calls you onward, promising more secrets in its winding paths. As you wander further, the atmosphere shifts. The noise of trade and laughter softens, and a different energy greets you, a quieter, more reverent hum. This corner of the market is devoted not to food or cloth, but to the invisible threads that tie the living world to the divine. You notice first the stalls lined with amulets, their tiny shapes glinting under flickering torchlight. Scarabs carved from green stone, eyes of Horus in lapis blue, tiny ankhs of bronze all arranged carefully on linen cloth. A woman holds one to the light, her fingers tracing the smooth surface before she strings it onto a cord for her child. These charms are more than decoration. They are guardians, believed to shield the wearer from harm, sickness, or misfortune. Even the poorest would save what they could to own one, for protection in this life and the next. A little farther along, incense burns in shallow clay bowls, smoke curling upward like delicate fingers reaching toward the stars. Priests in white linen robes walk slowly between stalls, their heads shaved clean, their movements deliberate. One pauses at a brazier, sprinkling grains of frankincense onto the coals. The smoke thickens, sweet and resinous, carrying prayers upward. For the Egyptians, scent itself was divine, something unseen, yet powerful enough to bridge human breath and the gods. Beside the incense sellers, another vendor displays small jars of oils lotus, myrrh, and cedarwood. Each is said to carry blessings, healing, or spiritual strength. You watch as a young couple purchases a small vial of lotus oil, their hands brushing as they place it carefully in a pouch. The vendor murmurs a blessing, and they nod solemnly, as though sealing not just a trade, but a promise of protection. Beyond, an older man sits cross-legged with papyrus scrolls spread before him. His fingers are stained with ink, his reed pen resting nearby. Curious villagers lean in as he recites words in a rhythmic tone, fragments of prayers and hymns written in the flowing curves of hieratic script. Few could read in Egypt, but many believed in the power of the written word, that to inscribe a name or a prayer was to make it eternal. The scribe's voice rises and falls like a chant, and those listening close their eyes, absorbing his words as if they were spells. On a raised platform, another figure catches your attention. A performer dressed as the jackal-headed god Anubis stalks slowly, his mask gleaming in the firelight. Children stare in awe while adults bow their heads respectfully. His presence is a reminder that life here is never far from death, that every loaf of bread and jug of beer is shadowed by the eternity awaiting beyond. Yet even this solemn image does not frighten, it reassures. The people trust that the gods walk among them, especially in moments like these. Nearby, a small crowd gathers around a fortune teller. She holds a bowl of water, gazing into its surface as she mutters soft words. A woman leans close, asking about her husband's journey down the Nile. The seer nods, swirling the water, then smiles faintly. A promise of safe return, perhaps, or a gentle lie to ease her heart. Either way, the market accepts her words as part of the night's rhythm, where the sacred mingles with the ordinary. As you move through this section, you feel the blending of worlds, the marketplace not only as a place of exchange, but as a temple under the stars. Here, buying and selling are intertwined with blessing and prayer. Every object seems to carry a double weight, one of practical use and one of divine purpose. Above you, the night sky remains vast and brilliant, each star thought to be a god or spirit watching silently. The torches below flicker like earthly echoes of that greater light. And in this moment, you sense that every Egyptian believed that the boundary between life and the divine was thin, especially under the cover of night. The music of flutes returns faintly in the distance, guiding you onward to another part of the market where still more secrets await. Leaving behind the solemn aura of incense and amulets, you follow the faint trail of laughter. The marketplace opens into a broader square, where torches are set higher, their light stretching farther into the night. Here, the energy is lighter, more playful, more human. It feels like the heart of the night market, a place where families, friends, and strangers gather not to trade goods, but to share stories and joy. At the center, a storyteller stands atop a small wooden platform. His arms sweep wide as he speaks, his voice rising and falling with dramatic rhythm. Around him, a circle of children sits cross-legged, their eyes wide, their mouths open in wonder. He speaks of gods and heroes sailing across the sky in his golden boat, Set battling Horus for the throne, Isis weaving spells to protect her child. His words are not just tales. They are living myths, carried from generation to generation, reminding everyone who listens of their place within a story that stretches from the beginning of time. The children giggle as he mimics Set's growling voice or Horus's proud tone, and even adults lean closer, caught in the spell of his performance. A man nearby claps the rhythm on a small hand drum, accentuating moments of tension or triumph. Storytelling here is not entertainment alone, it is memory, culture, and a way of holding the world together under the desert stars. A little further along, families gather around low fires where food still cooks. Children chase each other through the smoke, their laughter mingling with the crackle of flames. Mothers share bread with neighbors, tearing off pieces and passing them with warm smiles. The night market has become more than commerce. It is a celebration of belonging. You notice a group of young men and women sitting together at the edge of the square, their voices soft, their gestures shy. A boy leans closer to a girl, offering her a fig wrapped in a palm leaf. She smiles, lowering her gaze, then accepts it. A small ritual of courtship repeated countless times under countless stars. The marketplace, with its lights and music, offers the perfect stage for such beginnings. Friendships deepening into love, whispered promises drifting into the night air. Nearby, musicians play more lively tunes than before. A woman plucks the strings of a harp, her fingers delicate yet confident. A man joins with a reed flute, the melody rising above the chatter, while others keep time with hand drums. People sway gently, some clapping, some tapping their feet, until a few cannot resist and they rise and begin to dance. Their movements are not rehearsed but natural, flowing with the music, hips and hands moving in rhythm with the beat of the night. The square fills with clapping, laughter, and song, as if the Nile itself were pulsing through their veins. In one corner, an old man sits with a jug of beer, surrounded by friends. They laugh so loudly that others turn to watch. He slaps his knee, finishing a joke that leaves his group roaring with amusement. Even here, among the sacred and the solemn, humor finds its place. Life, the Egyptians knew, was a balance of reverence and joy, of prayer and laughter. And yet, amid the cheer, there are quieter pockets. You see a mother holding her baby close, rocking gently as she hums a lullaby. A young scribe sits apart, writing by firelight, recording what he sees, the sights, the sounds, the faces. Perhaps he hopes his words will outlive him, that someone centuries later might read them and know what this night felt like. The market breathes as a living thing, its heart beating with drums, its soul singing through stories and songs. It is no longer simply a place to buy and sell. It is a tapestry of human connection, woven in laughter, myth, and music. Above, the stars glitter silently, patient witnesses to it all. And in their glow, you sense a truth that lingers in the air. That nights like this, where joy is shared and stories are told, are what truly keep a people alive through time. The night deepens, and though the fires still burn, the market slowly begins to shift again. Somewhere ahead lies another layer of mystery, one quieter, more intimate, where secrets and dreams are exchanged under the hush of the dark. The laughter and dancing linger behind you as you walk further into the market, following a narrower street where the torches are fewer and shadows stretch longer. The air cools, touched by the faint breath of the desert night. Here, the energy shifts once more away from public celebration toward something quieter, more secretive. Stalls are smaller, their lights dimmer, and the voices here are hushed, as if every word must be chosen carefully. You sense this is the place where ordinary trade ends and hidden exchanges begin. Beneath linen awnings and behind baskets stacked high, deals are struck in whispers. A man with sharp eyes gestures you closer, unveiling a cloth bundle. Inside lie small jars of coal, the black powder used to line the eyes. But he leans in, murmuring of rarer things. Uncommon resins, imported perfumes, pigments smuggled upriver. His gaze darts left and right, making sure no scribe or guard has wandered this way. In ancient Egypt, some trades carried taxes or restrictions, and here, in the quiet corners, buyers and sellers took risks to acquire what cannot be easily found. You notice another figure farther along, cloaked in darker robes. On his mat lies a collection of charms not seen in the open square. Small ivory carvings of protective deities, scarabs etched with unfamiliar glyphs, and fragments of bones said to hold power. A woman kneels before him, offering a copper ring in exchange for one of these charms. Her hand trembles as she accepts it, whispering a prayer under her breath before vanishing into the shadows. The air here smells different, less of roasted food and more of musk, resin, and dust. A torch sputters, and for a moment the street falls into deeper shadow, heightening the sense of secrecy. You hear voices bargaining, but they are low, urgent, filled with intent. At the edge of this hidden quarter, a small tent glows with a steady lamplight. Inside, an old woman sits cross-legged on woven mats. Before her rests a bowl of sand into which she slowly draws symbols with her finger. A young couple sits across from her, leaning in, hanging on her every word. She is a fortune teller, one of those women who claim to read the whispers of the gods through patterns in sand or through the movement of stars above. Her voice is soft, rhythmic, like chanting. She tells the couple of journeys yet to come, of children not yet born, of love that must endure hardship before it finds peace. They listen, spellbound, their hands entwined. Not all who pass by believe her, yet no one scoffs aloud. For in the Egyptian night, where gods are thought to walk unseen and the boundary between worlds feels thin, her words carry weight. Even skeptics pause just for a moment to wonder. A group of fishermen huddles nearby, swapping more practical secrets. They whisper of where the Nile runs thick with fish, of which it reeds to cut for nets, and of the moon's pull on the river's flow. Their knowledge is no less valuable than the fortune tellers. It is the lore of survival, shared quietly, man to man. Further down, two merchants lean together over a sealed jar. One lifts the lid just enough to release a faint, sweet scent. Honey, thick and golden, the treasure of bees. Its sweetness is rare, and so their deal is struck in a glance and a quick exchange of coins. Deals like this, conducted in shadows, keep the marketplace alive long after the drums and laughter fade. And then, almost unnoticed, you see children darting between stalls, their small hands quick as sparrows. They laugh in whispers, slipping figs or dates from baskets when backs are turned. Petty theft, yes, but in the night market, where abundance and temptation meet, it is a part of the unseen rhythm. Some vendors pretend not to notice, shaking their heads but smiling quietly, remembering when they too were young and hungry. This hidden section of the market is less about spectacle and more about survival, secrecy, and human need. It reminds you that beneath the songs and the dancing, every society carries its shadows. And yet, these shadows are not sinister, they are simply another thread in the vast tapestry of life. As you move beyond the hush of whispered trades and secret fortunes, the market begins to thin. The fires are lower now, the air cooler. Ahead, you sense the final stretch of the night, the moments when the market exhales, winding down into silence as the stars will overhead. The sounds of laughter and bargaining grow fainter as you step away from the hidden quarter. The market is beginning to loosen its grip on the night. The torches, once fierce with flame, now burn lower, their edges flickering as the desert wind stirs. The scents of roasted fish and spiced bread linger in the air, but they are fading, replaced by the cooler breath of the Nile drifting across the streets. Vendors begin to pack away their goods. Clay jars are tied with linen, baskets are stacked neatly, and woven mats are rolled with practiced ease. The market has been alive for hours, yet now it exhales, as if the energy of the place is slowly folding back into silence. A man selling dates lifts the last of his fruit into a sack, tucking it carefully into the crook of his arm. His daughter, no more than 8 years old, follows behind him carrying an empty basket nearly her size. Together, they disappear into the dim alleys, their footsteps light, their voices hushed. Near the river's edge, fishermen gather their nets, still damp from the day's labor. They talk in soft tones, making plans for tomorrow's tide. Their torches reflect in the dark water, casting ripples of orange across the surface. The Nile, eternal and patient, flows on as it has for thousands of years, indifferent to the small stories playing out on its banks. You pass by a group of dancers who only hours earlier had filled the air with rhythm and joy. Now they sit in a circle, their drums resting on their laps, their laughter mellow and quiet. One of them hums a tune, softer now, almost a lullaby, as the others lean against each other with weary contentment. Their bodies are tired, but their spirits still glow. A merchant selling papyrus scrolls carefully wraps his wares in linen cloth, stacking them into a chest. He stops for a moment, watching the stars above as though seeking guidance. Then, with a small nod to himself, he closes the chest and ties it shut. The fortune-teller's tent is dark now, her bowl of sand smoothed over with a single gesture. She has slipped away silently, leaving only the faint scent of incense and the echo of her words hanging in the night air. All around, the night market dissolves slowly. Stalls that once shone with lamplight now stand in darkness. The chatter of voices dwindles into murmurs, then into footsteps, and then into stillness. It is as if the city itself has begun to fall asleep. A faint breeze carries the sound of temple bells in the distance. They toll slowly, marking the passing of another night. Priests in white linen walk toward the river, their silhouettes calm and steady, their chants rising softly as offerings are prepared for the gods. Even as the marketplace rests, devotion continues, reminding you that in Egypt, life and faith were always entwined. You pause to take in the moment. Above you, the stars shimmer in vast silence, countless points of light reflected faintly in the dark ribbon of the Nile. The night is deep, but there is peace within it. The hum of the market, the warmth of its people, the hidden exchanges, and the bright celebrations, all of it has folded into memory, leaving only stillness. And yet, that stillness is not empty. It holds the weight of the evening, as if every sound and every scent lingers invisibly, woven into the air itself. The ancient Egyptian night has a way of keeping what it has seen, as though the market will forever echo faintly in the fabric of time. You walk slowly, your steps gentle, your mind quiet. The night is ending, and the memory of the market settles in you like a soft cloak, heavy enough to comfort, light enough to let you rest. The last torches sputter and fade, their glow retreating into soft embers. The alleys, once alive with laughter, bargaining, and music, now stretch out in calm darkness. What remains is the hush of the desert air and the deep, steady rhythm of the Nile moving beyond the city's edge. You find yourself standing at the riverbank, the market now only a memory behind you. Across the water, the silhouette of temples rises in silence, their columns reaching skyward like guardians of eternity. The stars above scatter endlessly, as if sewn into the heavens by hands older than history itself. The city sleeps, the market sleeps, even the restless breeze grows softer, carrying only the faintest scent of spices, baked bread, and sweet figs left behind. All around, the world feels still paused in a gentle balance between time and timelessness. And in that stillness, your mind begins to loosen its grip. Thoughts soften, like footprints in the sand slowly erased by the tide. The rhythm of the night has done its work, slowing you, guiding you, carrying you further into quiet. If you close your eyes now, you can almost hear the lull of the river, feel the cool desert air brushing against your skin, and see the faint flicker of torches disappearing into memory. The ancient Egyptian night market fades, but its warmth lingers within you. Welcome at last to rest.
you.